one of my favorite things that you both, even though it's technically Eliza, both of you I know have a buy-in on this, courageously share online is about Will's chastity. You are so open about how Will does not look at porn. And as someone who does have an apostolate that's very centered around discerning marriage, I get so much conversation in my DMs about pornography use, about how common is it? Like, what can I expect as a woman? It's typically the women who their boyfriends look at it and they're struggling with like what that looks like. Is it even realistic to think that someone wouldn't? What is recovery, freedom, et cetera, look like? Is it possible that they just wouldn't look at it? You know, those sorts of dynamics. So I think it would be really helpful if you're willing, both of you, to just kind of talk about this, right? Like there are a lot of men who don't look at porn. They just don't talk about it on the internet, right? So it seems like it's not as common. And I guess objectively in the world, it would be less common to find a man who has that kind of integrated chastity, who is free. But it's not like you're the only person, Will. You're not the only person in the whole world who doesn't look at porn. But you guys have this courage to talk about it. And I do notice, we talked a little bit before we started, that you are very, very good about managing your Instagram comments, Eliza. But I see maybe before, because I'm looking at him and I'm fascinated by this, that there are people who really hate on you guys. You know, he's lying to you and there's no way that's true. And you're so deceived. And like all of this like character shaming. So I'm curious, I'm going to leave it an open question and kind of let the Holy Spirit guide where the two of you want to share. Because I know this is a sensitive topic that you're so courageously sharing online. I would love to hear just generally your thoughts on this. Give you some space to talk more about it.
I'll start from where I'm coming from, which is a long time ago when I was young, I dated someone who habitually consumed porn. I was very young. I knew that porn exists, and I was so young and my parents, bless them, did an excellent job shielding me and my sister from stuff on the internet, and I feel like it's a lot more, parents have a lot more awareness about it now than they did when we were teenagers and young people. But my parents did have that awareness. And so my sister and I were not exposed, praise Jesus. And at this point, I thought that I knew porn existed like as a fact of life, but I did not know it was as common as it is. I also did not understand when I was dating this person, and a few months in, I learned of his habitual porn consumption. I did not understand its addictive nature. And I'm not going to make a sweeping claim that, he definitely was addicted or not, because I don't think that's fair. But it was a habitual consumption, and I did not, in my youth and all the little I knew, I also did not understand that it takes serious dedication to break away from it. But also that I did not have to date somebody who habitually consumed it. I don't think that I really think it was just a lack of maturity on my own part. Not that I mean to beat myself up, but I was just young and didn't know a lot about the topic. And I thought that I was being like a heroic girlfriend for keeping on dating him and waiting for him to break free from this habitual consumption. And I just did not understand that it was not bad of me it would not have been bad of me if I said this is a deal breaker and broke up with him. Right. And another thing though that I regret is that he was like, please don't tell anybody about this. Like, I'm embarrassed by it. Which is, and I think it is fair that he was embarrassed by it and didn't want the whole world to know. However, if I had even just told one friend or my mom, they would have said, one good friend or my mother, they would have said, you need to get out of that relationship. That relationship is not one that, and if that relationship, with this being in that relationship, that is not a healthy situation and safe situation. If I had just told one person,
and him thinking that staying in the darkness is better for him. Like that's what breaks my heart. Like, don't tell anyone. Him thinking that being in the darkness is going to help. No, bring the light of Christ into that so you can move toward freedom, young man. Ooh,
yes. Okay. And I just did, and my mom also did a great job raising us on like touch safety and everything like that. And so there were so many other red flags that I had already known to look out for and leave a relationship if they were present, but I just did not know. And so I think that's why I'm so passionate about talking about it, because I stayed in that relationship for a long time when I could and was just had these bouts of like being happy in the moments where I was just ignoring the fact that this was true in his life, and then being
Yep.
devastatedly sad. Whenever the topic came up, whenever he had said that he was breaking free and working on it, but then I learned that he relapsed. After that, there was a lot of therapy involved. There was
Proud of you.
therapy on
Good
my call.
job.
Therapy of, regular talk therapy that I was going to one-on-one. There was a therapy
Sure.
program my mom also encouraged me to enter, and I did, called Bloom for Catholic Women.
Oh,
And they
so
have a secular
good.
version too
They do.
and their whole thing is just general betrayal trauma, which includes a partner's porn use.
Right. Infidelity, which
So
this falls under. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. And so there was a lot of therapy going along. There were so many hours in the Adoration Chapel just sobbing. There were long stretches of feeling like I did not know how I would ever trust a man again in my life.
Understandable.
But a lot of so much beautiful, beautiful healing from the Lord, thanks to his goodness and thanks to therapy, clinical, legit therapy, and thanks to friends and family who really, really buoyed me through that hard time. And praise be to Jesus, by the time I was discerning with the Sisters of Life, it was from a place of freedom and not from a place of, oh, I just want to run away to a convent and because I never want to see a man again. Even though there were
Yes.
times where I wanted to run away to a convent to never see a man again. But
Right.
thankfully,
But a
I
good
did
convent
not.
wouldn't accept you if you were just running from
Yeah.
marriage, if you weren't free to say yes to celibacy. Yeah.
Yes.
Could you mention,
And
you said you were younger. Were you in high school or college during this?
I don't want to share to protect his
Fair enough.
privacy.
That's fine.
But I was young. I was
Young,
younger
yeah.
than having Will in my life, obviously.
Yes.
And where was I going with that? So that is why it's really, really passionate to me, because of all the hurt and all the time and effort and labor it took to be buoyed and healing by the Lord, and also his hands working through therapy and through my friends who were taking such good care of me. And so from there moving forward, I was just like, I will not date someone who habitually consumes porn. I will not date someone who consumes any porn at all. Like it wasn't I will allow just a little bit, because it finally clicked into my brain. Porn is infidelity. Just because it's not a woman physically in your bed doesn't mean it's not infidelity. And that kind of thought process was one that it's so easy for me to say now, but it took me a long time to give myself permission to say that. I think for a while I was like, oh, it's not real. And it's not real betrayal because it's not a physical woman, but it is still real betrayal. And I want everyone
Absolutely.
listening to understand that it is still
Yes.
very, very, very real betrayal. And so it was like, I would never be okay with dating a guy who kissed another girl sometimes or like only on the weekends. So why would I be okay with dating somebody who watched porn sometimes or only on the weekends or whatever? It was no porn whatsoever. And Will knew that when we were friends.
Nice.
And knew that, well, I mean, you just knew that well before we started dating. You knew that that was the expectation. And I did, after that all happened, I did have an experience of dating a really sweet guy who I became friends with. He learned that I had that standard, but he had been trying to break free from habitually consuming porn for a long time. But hearing how affected I was by it, I think he had said to me later that he had never really realized that it doesn't just affect him and his soul and his mental health. It
Wow.
also affects the way he sees women around him in this world and the way he is able to enter into a future relationship. And so even though he wanted to, he did not date me until he did not even ask me out or express any interest in me until he was porn free, which I really, even though that relationship did not
man.
work out, I really respect and appreciate
Yes.
that he didn't try to tangle me in with the thing that he knew was a very firm boundary. And you didn't have a situation of like, oh, I have to wait until I am free of it to ask Eliza out. It wasn't exactly like that, but you just already knew that that was the standard. I want to hear what you have to say.
It's a tricky thing that I wish people would talk about more openly, because I mean, you are right that there are lots of men who do not habitually watch pornography, but there are very few men who have never seen it.
Absolutely.
And I think that something that I wish that um, something that I wish people would know is like, just because you have seen it in the past, or maybe it even was a habit in the past, or maybe it was an addiction in the past, like that doesn't make you a bad person. Like
Yes.
it, you know, it like it is a bad thing. I don't want to suggest that it's not as bad as it is, because it is, but it's like it is something that many men, myself included, were introduced to like way younger than we understood, and like a lot of times you don't even like ask for it, like it just kind of
Oh
gets
yeah. Oh yeah.
inserted into
Shoved
your
in you.
life
Yes. Absolutely.
before you're old enough to understand what it is, or understand that it's bad, or learn how to like kind of have the self-control that you need. And so something that
Because your brain isn't fully
yeah, because your
developed.
brain's not fully developed, and it's this
Well, and no
like
one told you. If you knew to be
yeah,
on the
and
lookout
and no
for
one
it,
told you.
then it would be
I
different.
am.
Yes.
It's interesting because I see all these girls in Eliza's comments being like, "Oh, how can I ever find a man who doesn't watch porn?" And like, they're definitely out there. Um, but I would say you also, I do think, like, you have to have a reasonable expectation too. Like, if you want to hold the standard of you will only date or marry someone who has never looked at porn, like that's okay. That's a standard that you can have for yourself.
But I would say it is a
But
little unfair, because
but
often it's not it's
right,
not guys' fault.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Because they were shown it when they were real, or just stumbled across it on the internet when they were really little. But it is reasonable to hold the standard of, if this is part of your past, there's only grace and healing and mercy from the Lord for you. And you need to take care of yourself to break free and do what is necessary to break free from that habitual consumption. But it doesn't mean that you are just like junk goods or too far gone just because that was a part of your past, even though you have since reclaimed your chastity with the Lord.
Absolutely.
And sought the
Absolutely.
necessary healing to break free.
yeah,
I am so
and
glad
I
you
mean,
made that distinction. Yes.
and I just think it really is no different from anything else. You know, like if you are, and it goes for men and women. Like if Eliza had slept with other men in the past, but had, didn't do that anymore and had repented of that, like that's fine. I wouldn't care. Like there's forgiveness. But if we had been dating or engaged and I found out that she was like
Actively doing
regularly doing that, I'd be like, yeah, I don't want this.
Well said.
And it doesn't even have to be like sexual, like if someone is like alcoholism or any addiction, like it's one thing for that to be something in your past, and I mean you might relapse sometimes, and that's not a good thing, but there's a distinction between that and like a habitual, like a habit that is part of your life that you're not like working to get rid of, and not doing everything you can to get rid of it.
There's also, you definitely should not, this kind of a side note, it is not realistic to expect that just because you start dating somebody, you will suddenly no longer have an appetite for porn, because it is addictive. And I'm not in a position to say you are addicted and you are not, this person's addicted, this person is not addicted. However, just because you're dating somebody doesn't mean the appetite goes away. And you can't put that expectation on the person.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't put that expectation on the person you are dating. You need to already have found freedom in the Lord and with the necessary resources to free yourself before you enter into a relationship.
I think that's generally, like if I'm giving general advice, which I don't do super often, but I sometimes will get people asking for general advice, like in my DMs and stuff. My general posture is, if they are actively working to break free, that is a very different posture than, I'm doing this thing, don't tell any other soul. Like, I'm working on it on my own, but don't tell anybody. And one, I think, is more able to discern marriage and would allow for some women to be able to partner with them as they're on their healing journey and enter into marriage. The other one, the like, keep it in the dark, don't tell anyone, I'm so ashamed, I'm just shackled, I can't even think about exposing this to the light. That person is absolutely not ready to get married. Like, that person absolutely needs to be making progress in freedom and healing, or towards freedom and healing, before they're ready to say yes to a marriage. And I also want to say that your example, Eliza, is such a perfect display of the mercy of God, because you were deeply injured by this particular wound. And you were like, I need a man that has total freedom before I marry him. And the Lord was like, yeah, you do. Here you go. Like, I'm going to call you to someone who has that freedom. Whereas some women they don't like it, they're like uncomfortable with it, but they don't have the kind of intense wound that would require total sobriety before marriage. And this is where general advice isn't always helpful, because God loves the individual person, right? Your individual story needed this particular kind of lived chastity, and he gave it to you. Like, that's what you needed. And so you were open about that, and the Lord gave it to you. And so if women are watching and they're like, I'm uncomfortable with this, but I'm open to accompanying this man on this journey, that's a very different situation than my heart has been so broken and I need total freedom, or I need total sobriety, right? And so that's where it becomes deeply personal. And a content creator on the internet is not going to be able to give you advice about this. You need someone in your real life who knows you, who knows your heart, who knows your past. But I love that distinction, because your heart had been broken in this way. The Lord allowed you to carry this cross on behalf of this person's healing and conversion. I mean, I'm sure you guys pray for this man and for his freedom and healing. And there's a gift in having dated someone and knowing someone's deep, dark stuff, and you can intercede before the Lord for him. But he also allowed you to meet someone that you felt totally safe with, because you were able to be honest about what you needed. Like, that is so beautiful.